Hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm Sarah Eisen, host at CNBC, and thrilled to be back here at Davos talking about the topic that everybody's talking about, which is AI. This is the AI panel. And it's interesting. I've done a few AI panels for the World Economic Forum in previous years. And we talked about the promises of AI and the perils of AI and the opportunities for AI and this sort of magical future. But this year's different because today we're talking about what's actually happening, which is it's here. And it's being used by all the people on the stage. And I think we're going to have a great conversation about how it's being used, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, and how are we all learning about it. And it's a perfect time to do this. You know, the World Economic Forum today, I just want to say it right, they released a white paper. They have this AI Transformation of Industries initiative as part of the broader AI Governance Alliance, which all these companies are part of. And they released this white paper today, and I just want to share one of the findings, because I thought it was interesting and apropos of this conversation. 74% of companies struggle to scale AI, and only 16% are prepared for AI-enabled reinvention. So let's talk about it. I just want to introduce our esteemed panel. Matt Garman is the head of AWS. Ramon Laguarta is the CEO of PepsiCo. Julie Sweet is the CEO of Accenture. We've got here Amin Nasser, the CEO of Aramco, and then of course Paul Hudson, who is the CEO of Sanofi. So we'll go into the drug sector, big food, energy, and then across services and technology. But Matt, I'll just kick it off with you. You're the technology guy. I feel like you guys, we're just starting to get all your enterprise customers onto the cloud. Where does Gen AI fit in, and where are we in that process?
Well, it's an extension of that. I think we talk to a lot of customers get super excited about what they can do with Gen AI, and then and actually there's kind of two groups of people that actually start to get value from that. There are the group of people that have a bunch of their data already moved to the cloud and organized and in a data lake so that they can actually access it and drive enterprise value. And then there's folks that haven't done that yet, and they find that they go and they do proof of concepts for AI and get things up and running quickly, and then they try to integrate into their enterprise data, and they can't do that. And so that is one of the big pushes that we see early from a lot of customers, is that when they've already done much of their cloud migration or they're really on that path, it gives them a real leg up to actually driving value from any of the AI projects. And I think that's one of the things that we've seen early on as companies start to shift. I think because when you started early on, everybody did proof of concepts. Every single company out there did 100 proof of concepts to test and see what AI was capable of. But then if you didn't really have your enterprise data organized and labeled and set up and in a cloud environment, it's actually really hard to get value out of those AI projects, and that's where we see a lot of the companies sitting right now.
And who's your biggest competitor on that front? Is it Microsoft?
Well, from getting data in the cloud, I think that's a lot of it is on-premise still. And so many of the customers are struggling with legacy. I think as you think about AI, it's, you know, the cloud providers are us and Microsoft and Google are largely the players in the space. But the biggest struggle right now for the customers that slow them down is just being in legacy on-premise, by far. Like that is the biggest thing that we work with customers against as opposed to any other competitors out there.
I mean, I was fascinated talking to you about how much you're doing with AI as an energy company. I mean, you've got what? Tell us a little bit about what's going on in Saudi Arabia when it comes to you utilizing AI to improve your business.
You know, AI is a transformative force for not only our industry, for all industries. The energy industry in particular receives a lot of data daily from seismic, from modeling, from all type of processing that we are running in our facilities. We receive almost 10 billion data points daily. But you mentioned something about 74% could not scale it up because you need the infrastructure. You need to make sure that you have the talents that know how to scale it up and utilize all of that data. And if you don't have the quality of data, which we do over 90 years, today, seismic, for example, it used to take us months to run seismic. Today, we moved to 2 weeks, 2 days, and you are going to hours. In terms of running seismic, that took a long time. That allows you to discover more and find more oil and gas. Productivity of wells, we used to run logs and all of these things, but in areas where we cannot run all of these logs to see the subsurface in terms of permeability, porosity, now you can use AI to predict machine learning in terms of predicting failures and all of it. We can predict now because there is a lot of data that comes. AI is helping us to transform the way we are managing all of these equipments and reducing the downtime, increasing our efficiency, reducing our carbon footprint. And this is, transformative, as I said, for our industry. And as we go along in terms of using it to manage, for example, we're looking at the grid. You need to stabilize the grid. We are investing heavily in renewable in the kingdom. But you need at a certain point to manage the grid because there is an intermittent production. You have energy coming for 12 hours. You will stop it. Gas will be pushed back. Today, we use mechanical ways to manage the load. And you're talking about loops in the pipelines, and these are in billions of dollars. With AI, you will be able to manage the load and end up reducing the cost that you require mechanically today to deliver the energy in a stable manner. Reliability. Reliability is a big important item for us. You're talking about, as an industry, we spend almost $1 trillion. If we are able to reduce couple, today we use pressure, temperature, and vibration to look at equipments and manage and predict when it will fail. We are looking now at using process data and using these process data, combine it with pressure, temperature, and predict much better in failures of these equipments. Similarly, in corrosion and other things, there is a lot of things that you can do, but you need to build the use cases. And this is where you need to scale up, and you need the talent, the people that are AI-enabled, and we have 6,000 of them in Saudi Aramco today. These people build the use cases. Today, I have 430 use cases. Each use case is a project in its own. And it ends up with huge benefits. You cannot use the AI expert alone. You need to use the AI expert combined with the subject matter expert that are AI-enabled.
We're going to come back to the labor issue and how you upskill your workforce, which I know you have done, because clearly 6,000 people. But just on the use cases, a lot of what you just talked about was cost savings and productivity, which, Ramon, I know you talk a lot about. Every earnings quarter, we talk about how much productivity savings you are seeing. So to what extent is that coming from Gen AI and how you use it in the supply chain?
Listen, to what Matt was saying, I think we've been at transforming our infrastructure for now 4 years. So we're ready to capture the value of AI across the end-to-end of the company, and it is a big. Now, if you think about PepsiCo, about maybe 3 verticals: agriculture, manufacturing, logistics, selling, and then consumer-facing. We can create value in all of those elements, and there is a couple of areas we're going after. First is making our people more capable. We have 330,000 people across the world. We can make our frontline much more capable, much more intelligent, which makes the company much more agile, making decisions much more locally relevant. It's a huge transformation. The second one is we're connecting the company end to end. This is a big gap that we have across the world. We were not sharing information in an agile way. We're not giving our people access to the person, somebody in Turkey that know what Peru was doing or what Vietnam was doing. Now we have shared platforms where our associates can become much more productive. And the third element for us is simulation. We can simulate the future in a way that we could not in the past. That is impacting our R&D developers, how they can create new products much faster. So end-to-end, our agronomists, our frontline salesmen, throughout the company, we're capturing value. It's not only cost, Sarah. I think there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of understanding consumers better. There's a lot of serving consumer needs much better. There is making the life of our associates much easier, and is making them intelligent solution makers versus just action-oriented. So I think there's a massive transformation in terms of intelligence of the company, connectivity of the company, growth opportunities. It's just massive, the opportunity. The work is hard, as you were saying. It's infrastructure, it's people, it's different financial metrics. There's a lot of changes you have to make at scale to make this happen.
So can Gen AI tell us right now what will be the next big snacking hit?
Gen AI can help us understand consumers better. And GenAI can help our R&D developers and our marketeers come up with alternative simulations to say, okay, this is going to be probably a preferred convenient food for that particular occasion, or a much more functional beverage for that particular opportunity. Yes.
Paul, one of the most exciting applications, I think, and opportunities is in healthcare and drug discovery. But we haven't really seen that happen yet, have we?
Well, it takes about 12 to 15 years to discover and develop and bring forward a new drug. And large language models are, what, 2-3 years at least in practical application. We spend about 2 to 3 billion to develop and discover and develop that medicine over the same time. Roughly a third of the discovery effort now, we're talking the drugs that will launch in 10 years, are being validated by AI. So our probability of success is so much higher. People forget that there's so many diseases that are undruggable or considered undruggable, and so many diseases that are unmet in terms of need and treatment, that we're using AI to genetically validate targets to make sure we're more likely to bring forward a medicine a decade later, to validate the mechanistic approach, particularly with small molecules. We need to make sure that every dollar is well spent in terms of the investment and increase our probability of success. And you won't see that in real terms. I think we're still waiting for the first medicine that's done the entire journey. You know, at Sanofi, it's been really fascinating for us because, yes, we genetically validate everything and target selection is more than 90% accurate now, but we spent an awful lot of time putting together our data, making sure that we have end-to-end. We've completed that. We're running validated agents now at scale with more than 20,000 people using them on a daily basis. Could be from as simple as inventory management, where the agent is correlating all the data real time and letting us know on our phone, almost like Instagram notifications where we're at. We're doing very much the same in terms of forecasting accuracy. We're more than 99% accurate in terms of our use cases. And while most big companies are still piloting, dabbling, most CEOs that are a little bit apprehensive, think more cyber than opportunity, are running lots of proof of concepts because it's safer, right? Just to do that for a few years before retirement. It's such a big opportunity that the point we're at the moment for us, we've decided that everybody will be in the same place in the end in healthcare. So being first and the broadest, which is where we believe we are right now, gives us a huge opportunity to beat others. You know, you have to imagine, and I think it was said earlier, it's the jobs that are at risk are the jobs where the human isn't interested in AI. AI doesn't beat human plus AI. It takes the role of somebody that's not interested in AI. And we've managed to get the vast majority of our people now being enabled, much like using Waze, for example. Should I turn left? Should I turn right? Which is the fastest, on a daily basis. Great news for patients, ultimately incredible news for us. And maybe lastly, we used to, when I joined the company, spend a week doing a budget process. Now we can spend about 3 hours, ultimately, because AI lets us know where we're heading. We use it as a base case, and we adjust resources from there. And we're redeploying up to $1 billion real time, enabled by an agent, to allow us to do that. So exciting times in healthcare. I think in healthcare in general, people are a bit slow. I think in the race of turtles, we're the lead turtle.
That's a good place to be. Better be in the lead. Julie, you work with probably a lot of these folks, all sorts of different industries, as you provide IT services around the world, including how these companies are upgrading, right, to Gen AI. What do you see as the best, most exciting use cases?
Well, first of all, I want to underscore what you said when you opened, that it is here now. And I do work with each of the companies here and partner with Matt. And I will tell you that for companies with CEOs who are like the ones in this panel, both visionary and deep in the execution, AI is being used at scale now. And you heard these examples, and you need both, right? Because you have to embrace the vision, but also, I mean, this was a master class just now in terms of all the things that companies are facing and how to scale. I'd say there's 3 big trends that we can also, think about, kind of if we lift it up for a moment. One is on growth, which Ramon accurately said, look, the business case for AI is always better if you have growth and efficiencies, right? So hyper-personalization, which is taking old traditional things where you personalized it using customer segmentation and prior data, and instead being able to real-time personalize much more to actually preferences. So for example, Radisson Hotels, now when someone goes on and says they want to go skiing, they want to go to a Swiss chalet at one of their hotels in the Alps, they can actually show different pictures because they know if someone goes and skis or if someone goes to the spa. And so in real time, when they're showing that hotel, they can now put different pictures to do that. That is true across industries now, and we're seeing it in banking, we're seeing it in retail, we're seeing it in increasingly in health. So that is an important area to focus on. The second big one is physical AI, and that was what Amin was touching on. And that, of course, is growth and efficiency, right? Downtime affects your revenue. But we're seeing beyond the energy category, we're seeing this in manufacturing. We're working with the global tire manufacturer. We're used to literally, if there was a defect on the line, it would take weeks to investigate the cause, and it's now come down to hours, which makes a huge difference if that line is stopped for a week or 2 weeks versus a few hours. And so we just announced some work we're doing with Kion and NVIDIA using technology, including Matt's technology, around warehousing solutions and cutting manual labor, which is really important because there's a huge talent shortage for people to work in these warehouses. So physical AI is important. And then the last trend, which I think is also super exciting, is that it's expensive and it takes a lot of time to upgrade your technology. And actually, as Matt was saying earlier, a lot of the challenge we have today is people are on mainframes, right? They're still on-prem. And Gen AI is now helping us be able to get off the mainframe faster. And that's a lot of work that Matt and I are doing with many clients. So the use of Gen AI to itself accelerate the movement to the future. So those are just three things that I think are just good to keep in mind as you're plotting, how do you embrace this and move quickly.
Another theme that I'm picking up from everybody is just the collaboration and partnerships, and we see this every day. Like, how many here are partnered with NVIDIA in some way for chips? Like,
Everyone.
yeah, you kind of have to do that. But you're also partnered, I know, with Grok and others.
Yes, of course. You work with everybody.
How, Julie, do you think that evolves, the partnership landscape?
Well, I think, first of all, innovation only happens through partnerships, right? Any company says that they can innovate only internally is almost by definition not innovating. And especially as you think about the things that will unlock, like for example, the work that we helped do for the World Economic Forum that you mentioned earlier on industries, that is bringing together all the industries, all the companies in industries to work together to talk about what is the unlock that AI does and help everybody move faster, right? And I think that's important as you think about talent, for example, and you're seeing a lot of this actually in Saudi Arabia. They're like just a leader and bringing together companies to how do you think about upskilling and not trying to do it only within your own company, but through partnerships both with government and the private sector. And so many of both the opportunities and challenges ahead are going to come through collaborations across companies, in communities, and with governments and educational institutions.
Matt, I'm curious how you approach the jobs issue internally at Amazon and at AWS specifically, and keep your team or get your team to become Gen AI experts.
Sure. I guess my mic wasn't working, so I got double mics now. Yeah, well, look, it was for us. It wasn't actually that hard. I think we're fortunate to have some of the best technology experts in the world, and so they jumped in and in many ways were driving a bunch of the Gen AI technology. So getting that set of the people to dive into the technology wasn't really that hard. It's like kids in a candy store for them, really. They're quite excited to dive in, and we have some of the best science experts in the world, some of the best technology experts in the world, and so that part of our business I think was quite easy. I think, and then the rest of the business, we also know that our customers are all looking to us to be the experts, and so it's always incumbent on us to be at the leading front of that. And so whether that's our sales folks that are at the head of in front of customers, they're often asking us how do they go implement these technologies. And so we spend a lot of time making sure that, fortunately we have that expertise in-house, that we're also training the rest of our team all of the time to be at the leading edge of technology. And so that we've built that muscle over the last probably 20 years that we've been building AWS, to whether it's new technologies across the board, we've kind of built that mechanism to do training. But it's also not just us, as it turns out. Our customers look to us to train them as well. And so we've actually built up a whole organization that's focused on training customers, and it's through free training. We train millions and millions of customers for free on AI because we feel like they're not going to get the most out of technology. They're not going to get the most out of what we do if they don't. And it's actually not how you use the technology. That's not actually the training. The hardest bit is getting people's heads around what's possible. And I think not even what's possible now, but what's possible 24 months from now, or 48 months, or 24, 2, 3, 4 years out. Because I think people have a hard enough time realizing what's possible today, but as you're implementing it, 12 months later, the technology is going to be much further along. And so you really have to think about what's going to be possible and unlocking. And it really is, it's unlike a technology that we've had before, maybe going back to the internet or something. Like it really is going to change every single job in every single industry in ways that I think it's really hard for people's heads to get around. And so it's not just doing something 5% better, it's doing something 1,000% better or more. And so that's orders of magnitude. It really takes time to spend with customers and partners like Julia and others, where we have to sit down and help them understand how can their business actually get that much more efficient, that much more effective. How can we change customer experiences that way? And so and internally we had to get our teams to think bigger like that too, and really push them to think what's possible out there. But it's exciting. Like that's a pretty fun place to work. And I think as soon as your employees get their heads around that, okay, it's not that my job's going away, or it's not that this is going to save us 5% of the cost, but we're going to fundamentally be able to go deliver things weren't possible before. If you at least have the right sets of employees, most people get pretty excited about that opportunity.
Paul, what you were going to say?
Yeah, I think it's really an important point. I just want to connect the last piece to partnerships. So, of course, we work with Okin in drug development. We work with Formation Bio and OpenAI in trying to get us through to even submissions to the regulator. Incredible, great partnerships. And Ailey Labs on snackable AI, how we nudge the average person in the company to make a better decision. Important thing
Sandbox
that people...
AQ too, right?
Pardon?
Sandbox AQ also.
And Sandbox,
Yeah.
and we'll be at a session with them later today. And the reality is also the pace, and that you can really get better pacing if you partner externally. Their motivation and their incentive is different. And I think it can really pull, particularly when you're adopting new technology. And I talked to a lot of my peers about the adoption of AI and through partnerships. And people are still moving too slow, of course, but part of it is it needs to be sponsored from the top, because it's still unknown to so many people and the scale of it, and so many business processes have to be changed. And if you're not going to do that, it's a sort of nice addition to the tools that you have. If you really want to change things, I'll give you an example. We spend around 8 billion euros a year on research and development. And the key decision-making body, our drug development committee, begins its session with a validated agent recommending whether a drug should pass through a toll gate, whether it goes to phase 3 or goes to phase 2. And we do that because it's very sobering, because the agent doesn't have a career at stake. The agent isn't wedded to the project for the last 10 years. The agent is dispassionately saying, don't go forward, or go forward faster, or go forward and remember these things. And we're not used to having somebody without a career at stake in the room at a senior level. And we really have to change how we think about the adoption of AI and how it changes behavior. And to the points made earlier, how it helps people double down on insights rather than analysis to see the roles change for productivity gains and growth, but not getting obsessed about, am I going to be around? That's really not the question.
Right. I feel like we've moved on from the job-killing debate.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you train your people? You mentioned thousands of them are now AI experts. Are those engineers? Who are they, and how do you do it?
Most of them, I would say, majority are engineers that they are trained in the field, that they are the subject matter expert. And you talked about collaboration. we need the AI expert from NVIDIA, Microsoft, Google, and all of these. But we need first the subject matter expert who understand AI, who will create the opportunities. Because at the end of the day, you need to see what is the size of the opportunity. I'll just give you another example. Corrosion, which impact not only our industry, every industry around the world, use corrosion inhibitor, use instrument scraping, use coupons, whatever. But it's a $3 trillion annually.
Cost.
So this is the opportunity. Now, this is a use case, and to say, okay, how do you go around creating value by reducing corrosion? How do you use your process data other than what I mentioned, the corrosion inhibitor, the instrument scraper, in terms of identifying where the corrosion is going to happen and how can you reduce it? That's a big thing. But for Aramco, the way we are training our people, we are using our large language model, Aramco MetaBrains. It uses about 70 billion parameters. We are also developing a trillion parameter large language model. This is for the use of our people, using our data trained on these things.
Do other energy companies do that?
I don't know. But my point, this is important and critical. The other thing you need, in order to capitalize on AI, and everybody talks about scaling, you need the infrastructure. And the infrastructure, you need to build it over so many years, because it's not only the fiber optics, the sensors, the computer capacity, I would say the large language models. It is also the talents, the people who understand all of these things. So what we are doing in order to further our collaboration with the tech company and capitalize on all of these advances in AI is taking these use cases, going to the high-tech companies, the one I mentioned, and show them what is the opportunity and how we can commercialize these things together, because others want to scale up, but they need to see the value. Where is the value? If I'm going to spend $1 billion to upgrade my infrastructure, and this is a low figure, by the way, it's tens of billions of dollars for the company size of Aramco, we're talking about infrastructure. That needs to see where is the opportunity exists and how can I capitalize on AI and move. We created Aramco Digital Company, separate than Aramco. And this is important and critical because they do work differently. They need their different pay structures. They need different training and development. So we created that in 2023, and it is helping us to digitalize and move forward. But creating the value, seeing the opportunity, putting a target, and I agree, it should not be a 1 year or 2 year or a 10 year or 15 years target to say this excites people. The talent you have, if you give them an ambitious target, they will work for it. And then you will see, because I mentioned the reliability, how much we spend as an industry on reliability, $1 trillion. Today, Aramco enjoy 99.8% reliability. So what is next? How can you improve it further, capitalizing on the advancement on AI?
And the corrosion example, you mentioned it's $3 trillion cost. So Gen AI allows you to save what?
Today, we use, as I said, corrosion inhibitor, instrument scraping, and ultra thickness measurements. I don't want to get too technical. But now, with AI, you can use process data. Because sometimes with my fluid, I send a slug of water. That will have an impact on the pipe at a certain location. That process data being processed simultaneously with the measurements that we take, it will allow us to be more precise in measuring corrosion, identifying the location, predicting what will happen in these instruments and pipes and all of these things. Because all of these things does not exist today. The AI expert cannot generate and see the value. Only the subject matter expert who are trained, who understand and put the size the opportunity and work with the specialist can really commercialize all of these technologies. And this is what we are doing.
I like how deep we're going on corrosion and energy production. What about, we've been talking a lot about company-specific, industry-specific use cases. I wonder if maybe we can talk a little bit about societal issues and whether we can solve things like energy security or, I don't know, cancer or Ramon, hunger.
Yeah. Maybe I can add a couple of elements on the previous conversation.
Sure.
There's two things also we need to deal as we transform the companies digitally. One is we're going to have to hire new job families that we didn't have in the company. Like if you think about data scientists, data engineers, technology people, we need to avoid that the company divides between the digital and the analogs, and then that is a big change management and culture transformation that we need to own as leaders. Obviously, there is training, there's digital academies, we're all doing that at scale where we started, but it's complex from the change management point of view. And going now, maybe I can join to your question.
Now solve
think about our agronomists and how our agronomists now have much more intelligence and how they can work with our farmers in improving yields in potato, corn, or oats, or whatever. They can reduce the use of water, they can reduce the use of fertilizers whilst improving the livelihood of the farmer. So those are ecosystems that we can create now that create value for the farmer. The same for transportation. If you think about the way we're doing routing today before compared to how we were doing in the past, is totally different. So we're reducing the number of miles, we're reducing the consumption of fuel, we're consumption, the impact on carbon. When we talk about nutrition and future portfolio, I can see how we can personalize much more our portfolio to specific needs of the consumer. Think about hydration, for example, how we are now able to understand hydration at a much more granular level, and therefore Gatorade or Propel or all our brands can give consumers many more options, not only in the form of liquid, but in the form of powders that helps with the functionality of that particular product. So as you have smart manufacturing, much more agile, much more flexible ways of delivery, and much more consumer insights, we'll be able to solve some of the consumer needs around food or specific dietary needs or functional needs. So I see agriculture transforming at speed versus before, and we're going to enable that with partnerships. I see transportation changing massively, and that means a lot of resources will be freed up, much less impact on the world. And I see nutrition, I see functionality for consumers also evolving into much more personalized and much more targeted solutions depending on our preference or our particular physiological needs. So those are big areas where AI can help us, where companies like ours, with our know-how, with our reach and scale, we can help transform.
Julie, do you work with governments, and can governments play a bigger role here in utilizing AI to solve some of our societal problems?
Look, there's governments that are doing that already. I mean, in the UK, we worked with one of the health services areas of the government that was struggling to serve people because they didn't have enough people. And so people would write in having food insecurity and needing services, and it might take 6 weeks to get back to them, the most vulnerable people, simply because there weren't people to hire. Today, using Gen AI, that's 24 hours, right? So there's a lot of opportunity from supporting, research like into drugs and solving energy challenges to, food challenges. But there's also a real change in the way that governments can serve citizens. So there's a lot of opportunity with government. But I think one of the things that as we kind of walk away to think about what has to be different, whether you're a government or a company, is I would say, thinking about reinventing HR, because we talked about talent in that, but actually what this requires is a completely different thinking about how people work and what skills they have. In most cases, AI isn't replacing people, it's replacing tasks or parts of the processes, which means that in order to upskill people, you have to understand what skills do they have to begin with. And so we at Accenture moved to skills-based HR over 5 years ago. I have a database of almost 800,000 people and their skills. And so we're systematically redefining the skills needed at Accenture, who needs Gen AI, what kinds of technology, but also as we are replacing some of the things that they're doing with Gen AI, we're able to identify who could be upskilled. So you have to have skills-based HR, companies and countries. The second thing is you have to have HR that now adapts to how do you have trained people to work alongside. So we're releasing a blog today that shares our story in marketing and talks about what it was like, so we build our agents so you can give feedback, just like you would give feedback to someone you were supervising or feedback to a colleague. That suddenly makes the AI very real to people, and they start to see how it can really help them. That's a totally different mindset. We didn't have a playbook that says, how do we take people who are now going to use AI fundamentally in their job and make this to be something that they really care about. The last piece is change management. The kinds of change management that you have to do here require you to understand the technology, understand the people. In most cases, companies use change management to train on a new system, or they use whatever partner they happen to be using, and we use that. This is a skill set now that has to be at the center of your company because it's a continuous reinvention, right? The amount of opportunity that AI is going to change in countries and companies is, it's going to take decades, right? And so it's not a one and done. And so building change management so it's not viewed as being something off on the side is really important. And I share that because at the end of the day, the technology will only be effective if it's trusted and it's adopted, and you can then create new opportunities for your people. And I think we have to think very, very differently about the incredible departments of HR and the role that they need to play and how they have to reinvent themselves.
It brings up a question, which is, what is the next technological leap in AI? Matt, I mean, first of all, there's been such rapid sort of progress and development. There are questions whether Gen AI innovation is hitting a wall or if we're moving into AGI, artificial general intelligence. Where do you think it's going?
Yeah, and just one thing to add to what Julie said is just it is super interesting when you think about the skills that you're teaching your teams to do, and it is when you can find a particular task that you can find that AI is particularly good at doing, it can have massive impacts. And I actually think that's one of the things to highlight for everyone, which is if you get one of those use cases, really leaning into a particular use case that takes work and toil off of the rest of your team, that unblocks them. One example we had of this is we built a product that automatically upgraded Java versions. And you talk to software development teams, and that is a task that not one person is super excited about doing. No one's like, you know what I really love is just upgrading Java. It's boring, but it makes sure you have all the latest security, it gives you performance benefits, et cetera. We built an AI system called Q-Transform that just does that for you. And so we decided to eat our own dog food, and we said, okay, we're gonna go do that across Amazon. And we had a team of 5 people that the teams internally estimated that to upgrade all of our internal systems was going to take somewhere around 4,000 plus man years to upgrade. We had a team of 5 people that did it in a couple of months across. And so we freed up 4,000 person years of effort to go now build features and capabilities for all of our customers by taking away work that no one wanted to do in the first place. And that is it's a very good thing where you just lean in and you just say, this is a capability that we can go and roll out. And it's a highlighting when you find that thing, it has a massive impact on your company. Now ask about what's next from that. You're right that the technology is moving at an incredible rate. I don't know that we've seen a technology progress as fast as it has. And I think one of the challenges of that is it's hard for everyone to keep up. I think everybody externally loves to point that like, oh, maybe AI is hitting a wall. No, it's not. And it's just because if you look at any of how these technologies evolve over time, oftentimes you'll make a lot of progress on one path and then that path will run out of steam, but then you just find a different path and you continue to go on from there. And so the one path that probably is out of steam is it's unlikely that we just throw more data like more tokens at the exact same compute cluster and for the models to get smarter. That they've already trained on the whole corpus of data on the internet. There's still some specific areas where I think we can actually train more on particularly like IoT data and world data and other things like that. But for the most part, that path is gone. However, I think if you look at all of the latest models, they're doing things like reasoning loops and other things like that, and you find out that actually just asking the models to do the same. It's not quite right, but if you ask the models to just actually think about the answer a couple of times, like get the answer, try again, try again, try again, they actually come up with better answers and they can actually do more. And so if you build a reasoning loop where they actually can then spread off and it turns out that they're very good at doing lots of things in parallel, and then they take their own outputs and use those as inputs to actually go and solve the problem again, they can actually get much better. And so that's where a lot of the models today are actually doing this kind of internal reasoning where, and I think where you'll see some of these models go, which is not, where a lot of us have gotten used to this kind of ask it a question, it gives you an answer back. I think you'll increasingly see, and there's still some technology pieces that have to happen for this to really work well, but it's more like you're going to ask these models to go do something and they'll come back a day later or a week later. And it's more like if you have a real employee, this is what happens, right? You don't ask your employees to go do work and then say, what's the answer? That's not how it works, right? They go and think for a while and they iterate and then they talk to some other people. And actually that is how some of the models are evolving, where they'll actually talk to each other. They'll get inputs from other specific expert models. They'll bring them back. They iterate for a while. And so I think that that's where you'll start to see these much more capable models be able to do interesting and very novel work items that aren't possible today, where we expect the answer back in 5 seconds.
Paul, I know you wanted to say something.
Well,
then we're going to get to the call to the action.
Yeah, I know. Well, maybe I'll do a little bit of both,
Okay,
if that's all right, to help you with that. The radical transparency of data that you get with AI end to end, now we have in Sanofi, in big corporations, there's a lot of managers and senior managers who've made careers out of polishing slide decks to make sure that they can communicate upwards what we should think about a situation. And with the radical transparency, we've sort of blown that away a little bit. People can turn bad news into good news with the right PowerPoint presentation, and we're trying to really avoid that. The biggest mistake that people, and we can unleash resources and discover new medicines, the biggest mistake CEOs make, I believe, and you may have an opinion, is we're a different generation, and we delegate AI to CDOs. And it's the biggest mistake you can make. And I have a great CDO, but the nature of the change and the courage needed to change business process at scale to better optimize resources and to go chase miracles for us means that if you delegate to a CDO, you have automatically lost. You have great AI that nobody uses. And it's a real watch out, I think, for most of the CDOs and my peers, most CEOs, because everybody thinks that's where it should go for safety and responsible AI. We're in there. But sadly, at the intersection, say, between the business and manufacturing, the CDO is not the winner. And when you're trying to change business process, that's where the real win is. And that's why I have to lead it myself. And it's not just about me, it's just I'm the arbitrator to make sure we get the adoption that we need. It's over-delegated AI. And if I have a call to action, don't over-delegate. Know the value, radical transparency, go end to end, and the insights you get and the resource reallocation opportunity is so huge that it can absolutely change an organization.
Well, I'm glad you made it into a call to action, because this is the World Economic Forum and that's what we do. So the question is, one thing that you can do to improve Gen AI and its sustainability and its transformation. And Amin, maybe this gets into the challenge as well.
Yeah, I think everybody talks about the transition and think using AI and piloting, what can we do? For example, we cannot use hydrogen, scale it up today because it is costly. Carbon capture and storage, capturing the CO2, it's not the transporting of the CO2 injection, is also very high cost. Using AI to reduce the cost over the long term and make the transition at an affordable cost, that is an important. But the most important thing I need to say is about we need a technology equity, and we need technology, otherwise we'll end up with technology poverty. Today, access to technology is important for the West and also for the global South. We need to make sure they have access to technology, because the wealth gap is big today. And it will be much bigger if they don't have access to technology. And that's where it is important and critical. Add to that cybersecurity, because with AI and cybersecurity issues, if they don't have access to technology and capability with the quantum computing, all the codes, it will be decoded for their strategic and important asset, utility, electricity, and that is not going to be safe and reliable for these countries to run their operations. So there has to be a technology equity, otherwise we'll end up with technology poverty and we'll increase the wealth gap.
Yeah, it does feel like the have and have-nots is going to become a big issue. Julie, your call to action.
Build trust through operationalizing responsible AI. Our research says that only about 2% of companies worldwide have robust programs in place to put the guardrails around monitoring and policies. And so we've really got to move, and that number hasn't moved in the last year. And so building trust by treating AI like other programs, whether you're protecting data or you're protecting, against anti-corruption or those things, it's going to be absolutely critical, and we're behind in operationalizing it, and that's key to scaling.
Ramon?
Yeah, on top of what everybody said, I see, or we see AI as a way of empowering our frontline. So let's make sure that we empower our people, that we don't leave them behind in this digital transformation. We educate them, we help them capture the value, what is ahead of them. I think it's massive opportunity to make the organization much more frontline, much more closer to consumers, and elevating people's value and capturing higher wages and much more value creation at the lower end of the organization, and that impacts society in a big way.
Matt, final word.
Yeah, just remembering that your data is the differentiator for you. We're spending billions of dollars to make custom processors that are faster and lower cost and better performing. There's new models that are available every day that are going to be able to do incredible new things. But it's your data applied to those that really makes the difference for your companies. And so your data and your IP, it's really important to get that into a secure environment where you can take advantage of it, because that's how you actually drive value for your organization.
And I'll add one, which is for all of you and everybody who is working on this to come on CNBC more and talk about it, because there's a lot of misinformation and trust issues, and they're going to steal my jobs and move on kind of thing. And it's moving fast, and I think from all of you up here, we should all be pretty optimistic about it.
Yes.
So thank you very much, all of you, for weighing in. And thank you, guys.